So I had a good question yesterday. This is the top plunger rail out of this baler off this passenger side. And there's two spots on these where they wear really hard, and it's where the plunger comes up against the hay and the plunger bucks up and hits the top. So it's right here, and where the back roller is right here. So that's kind of how they look. It didn't have actually a whole lot of wear, but it does have some pretty good wear. I expect the bottom rail to be tapered off just a little bit, just because when the rollers taper, they'll kind of taper the rail as well, but they'll have a little bit more wear than these top ones. Basically, I was asked if I shim these before I replace the rails, and the question to that, or the answer to that is no, I don't. So they have a shim here on this one, and then there was no shim on the rear. But after I put this in, I may have to shim it. We'll just check the gap, and because this, I noticed we put a caliper on this, and this is just a little bit smaller steel rail than, I mean, not very much, but a shim would be too much. That's how little the difference was. But I might have to shim that once we get it all put together if the gap isn't correct. But as far as if I shim them in between, no, I don't. I just run it until I know they're ready to change, and then I change them. So these top rails are the toughest, in my opinion, to get out, because all the material gets down in here and rusts the top of those bolts and whatnot. These bottom ones, they're pretty clear. I mean, they'll come right out after you just kind of wedge that plunger up. We roll it back, wedge the plunger up, and then they'll slide right out. So the bottom ones are quite a bit easier than the top ones to put in. We about got the other one on the other side pulled out on the top, but have to make yourself a special tool to get in on these. Where's that socket right here? So what I did is I took a 17 millimeter socket and welded a 17 millimeter bolt in there. I just cut it off and welded it in there. And basically what this is for is we were good enough to get these out without having to pull the harnesses and grease lines and all the bullshit out of the way. Let me get up on the top of this real quick. Basically, there is, hey Brian, you want to hand me that? Oh, never mind. You go into this little slot right here, and that one is the bastard to get to. So you can't get a wrench in there to loosen it up after it's all loosened up. It'd be a real bastard to get a swivel and a socket. You could probably do it on this side. You definitely can't do it on the other side with the harnesses in there. So we built this because it's low profile, so it just slides right in there. And then you take a ratchet wrench and you can bust it loose and get that out. As I was saying, on this side, you've got like 3 different harnesses and 4 or 5 different grease lines in there. And we were able to get this one out as well with this little socket. And basically it's just a shallow Craftsman. I just used a Craftsman cheap ass socket that I welded a bolt into the top of. And we got that, we took a pry bar, lifted this harness up. We were able to get that in there and get those out without having to pull all these harnesses out. So that was kind of nice. And then same thing down on this side. You got to lift all the harnesses out of the way to get that one out there. Let's see here. See if I can see it. Be on this side, I guess. Be right down in there. There's another one. That was kind of a pain in the ass to get to as well, but that's basically what we did to get these out. But we don't shim anything until we replace them. And basically the reason that I don't is, let me get my fat ass back out of here. Might catch myself falling off this son of a bitch on camera. I'll take the camera. So the reason that I don't shim them is because they basically only wear in two spots. Like there's virtually nowhere here. There's virtually nowhere here. They wear right here and right here. So you got about 4 inches and about 4 inches where that plunger hits the hay. That's where it creates the most wear. And that's why I don't shim them, because if I was to shim to come up to make the difference on this gap, I'd be too tight here. So I don't shim to take out 4 inches of gap on a 4 foot long rail. We basically just put new rails in. So that's why I don't shim. I was asked that question yesterday and I figured I'd touch base on that and show you guys how we get them out too, because they are kind of a little tricky to get out, but do a little inventive and you can get them out without having to pull all the harnesses and all that stuff out of them. So that's all I got.